He had been the most wanted man on Earth for nearly a decade. Hunted across mountains, tracked through shadows, hidden in plain sight. But tonight, the hunt ends. This is the last day of Osama Bin Laden. The house sat in Abbottabad, a quiet military garrison town in northern Pakistan. Tall concrete walls, 12 feet high in some places, topped with barbed wire. No internet, no phone lines. Residents burning their own trash rather than leaving it for collection. To neighbors, it was simply a house owned by a private man. But American intelligence had been watching it for months. CIA analysts had noted the unusual security, the high walls, the strange behavior of the occupants who never left. For 5 years, Osama bin Laden had lived inside those walls, moving between floors, restricting himself, hiding, not in a cave, not in a mountain pass, but inside a house, in a city surrounded by ordinary life. Today would be his last sunrise inside them. Somewhere in that compound, the day began like most days. Fajr, the Islamic dawn prayer, was likely observed. The compound stirred to life the way it always did, quietly and deliberately. He was 54 years old, a man who had once commanded a global network, who had orchestrated the deaths of thousands, who had reshaped the world's security architecture, was now confined to a house, watching the news on a small screen, receiving rare, careful messages through a trusted courier. Bin Laden did not know that just hours earlier, on the other side of the world, the President of the United States had given the order. He did not know that 79 men had already been assembled, helicopters were being checked, that names had been memorized, photographs studied, floor plans rehearsed. He did not know that his location had been compromised months ago, and that the silence around his compound was no longer a shield. And somewhere in Washington, a war room was filling up as the evening came. At approximately 11 p.m. local time in Afghanistan midnight, 2 modified Black Hawk helicopters lifted off from a forward operating base in Jalalabad. Inside, 23 members of SEAL Team 6, the most elite special operations unit the United States military had ever fielded. They had rehearsed this raid dozens of times and had practiced the breach, the rooms, the stairs. They knew the layout of every corridor and which floor he was likely on. They flew low, below radar. No lights or communication that could be intercepted. This was no longer a surveillance mission, no longer a theory. 79 minutes stood between them and the compound. At approximately 1 a.m. local Pakistan time, the helicopters reached Abbottabad. Then, the first complication. One of the Black Hawks lost lift in the compound's courtyard. It clipped the wall on descent and went into a controlled crash. But these were not ordinary soldiers. They had trained for failure. The helicopter was secured. No one was seriously injured, and the mission continued. SEALs breached the outer gate. They moved through the compound systematically, building by building, room by room, floor by floor, securing occupants, clearing space, moving upward. The first floor, then the second. Somewhere above them, a man was awake. Whether he heard them coming, no one will ever know for certain. But within the compound, the sound of boots, of doors, of controlled and lethal movement was rising toward him like a tide. He was on the 3rd floor. The SEALs reached him within minutes of the breach. U.S. officials have confirmed in varying accounts that Osama bin Laden was encountered in a bedroom. He was not surrendering. The decision, as trained and authorized, was made in a fraction of a second. 2 shots, one to the chest, one to the head. The most hunted man in modern history was dead. For nearly 10 years, 2 American presidents, thousands of intelligence officers, soldiers, and analysts had pursued this single outcome. Billions of dollars, countless operations, missed chances in Tora Bora, cold trails, encrypted messages, Vanished couriers. It ended in a bedroom, in a quiet city, in the dark. Transmitted back to the war room in Washington, to the president, to the vice president, to the Secretary of State, who later described pressing her hand to her mouth. He was gone. The SEALs spent approximately 38 minutes inside the compound. They collected hard drives, documents, storage devices, intelligence that would keep analysts busy for years. Bin Laden's body was taken with them. Within 24 hours following Islamic burial rites, his remains were committed to the North Arabian Sea from the deck of the USS Carl Vinson. No grave, no marker, no shrine that could become a destination. His compound still stands in Abbottabad, though it has since been demolished. His face, that's once on every wanted poster, faded from walls and windows around the world. But the questions his life and death left behind didn't fade so easily. What is the cost of a decade of war? What does justice look like? And does an ending always feel like one? Leave your answer below. And if you want to know the final hours of another figure who changed the world,